myself, and then I'm going to have it. Okay, meeting everybody now.
Welcome everybody. Please note that you're being muted on entry. We're just going to take a couple of minutes to let people in. So thank you all very much for coming. This is a really, really important topic today, and I'm really delighted that so many of you have been able to come. My name is Alison Lowe, and I am the Deputy Mayor for Policing and Crime in West Yorkshire, and I do it on behalf of our Mayor, Tracy Brabin, who I'm going to ask to welcome you all in a moment. Can I ask all of you to please use the chat to tell us who you are and which organisation you're from, and then we'll all know, because we don't have time to do introductions, unfortunately, this evening. If anybody wants to ask a question, please use the hand function, and that's on the reactions at the bottom of your screen. If you just click on that and raise your hand, then our administrator, Nick, will know that he's got to unmute you. If you don't do that, we won't be able to let you in. So thank you so much for that. Without any more delay, I'm going to hand you over to our Mayor, Tracy Brabin, who's going to do the introductions, and welcome.
Thank you so much, Alison, and thank you to Alex Sobel, MP, and also his team, Nick and Helen, for making this happen. I just want to very quickly reiterate, when I stood for Mayor, a priority for me was the safety of women and girls. That's why I'm delighted that my Deputy Mayor, Alison, and I were on the same page about this. We have lived experience about sexual assault and violence. We want to make West Yorkshire the safest place to be a woman or a girl. Now, we know that the nighttime economy is not always the safest place for women and others with protected characteristics. But what has really concerned us is the rise in spiking across West Yorkshire, but Leeds in particular. And if I could just let you know, there's been 143 reported spiking incidents so far in Leeds, compared to 86 in 2019, which was obviously pre-pandemic. It's getting worse. And also what is really troubling is the new methods of spiking. So I'm here to listen. I want to hear from you about your experience. This isn't about blaming you or the victim for not looking after your drink or having too much to drink. It's also not about putting the onus completely onto the venue. That's not what we're here to do. We want to understand what's really going on the ground. So thank you, Alison, for hosting this, and thank you again to Alex Sobel.
Thank you very much, Mayor Brabin. Alex, would you like to say a few words of welcome?
Thank you, Alison, and thank you, Tracy. I just like to welcome everybody here. I think what we've got this evening is all the people in the room, all the stakeholders from the different sectors, whether that's from the police, from the council. We've got very senior councillors and council officers here, from the universities and student unions, from the venues, the bars and the nightclubs, and most importantly, also the voices of victims and people with lived experience. And I hope that this evening we can start to work together and support each other to solve what has become, in the last few weeks, really troubling spiking incidents that I've had testimony from some of you on the call tonight, and lots of other people who've got in touch with me. And we need to work together and support each other in how we tackle this. And so I hope that tonight will be the first step to us getting that resolution. So thank you again for coming.
Thank you so much, Alex. So for those of you who don't know, the reason that we're having this summit tonight is because both the Mayor's office and the office of Alex Sobel have been approached by several people, people who have been victims or people who are potential victims of spiking, who have requested a space to talk about those issues. And so tonight we're going to give space to some of the people who have sent us some questions, to some of the universities in our region, but also to some of the venues in our region to understand both what the issues are, but also how can we work together to resolve those issues. The police are also here and will be invited to answer questions when that's appropriate. But first of all, I hope she knows I'm going to ask her to speak. I'm going to ask Isabel Broadhurst, who is from Girls' Night In, because of course she didn't go out, and neither did many others as a result of her campaigning and that of many other brave young women in this city. So Isabel, hopefully you're happy to start us off by talking about your experience and why Girls' Night In was initiated.
Hi, yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, so we started Girls' Night In a few weeks ago now, and I've actually had really an overwhelmingly positive response to it. It's really been encouraging to see a lot of the club venues, obviously a lot of you are here tonight, engage with us and want to work with us to combat this problem. It has been brought to the attention of like the media, and I think a lot of people maybe didn't realise how much of an issue it was. So we're just really glad to be here tonight and be able to discuss this on this sort of platform and have everyone here to listen, because it has been an issue that's gone on for so long, and I think now finally it is starting to be taken a bit more seriously, because we've had so many stories, we've had so many people come to us telling us, you know, the awful things that have happened to them in Leeds right in just the last few weeks. So it is something that really we need to have change now, and this is sort of the moment to do that.
Thank you so much, Izzy. And thank you so much for your bravery in standing up, stepping up. It's the Leeds way, I have to say. We've got a long and proud history of campaigning in this city, and you're doing us proud. Thank you so much. I understand that Hilary Benn MP is in the audience and would like to say a few words.
Could Hilary please put your hand up so I can see you on the thing, please? Okay. Oh, yeah.
Sorry about that. I was trying to unmute myself. I didn't realise I had to have it done by Nick. Thanks. Look, I just want to join Tracy, Alex, you, Alison, and Izzy, and thanking Alex for organising this evening's event. I too have had emails from constituents who are concerned about spiking, the spiking that's gone on sadly for quite some time, and the more recent incidents in Leeds and other parts of the country where injection appears to be involved. It's extremely concerning. It is illegal behaviour. The question is, what practical steps can be taken to make it much safer for those who want to enjoy a night out, to prevent someone with malign intent wishing to commit a criminal offence against them? That is what the issue is. And I hope that we can focus as much of this evening's discussion on what are the practical steps. And I'm greatly looking forward to hearing what the clubs and venues who are on the call have got to say about this, because the Nighttime Industries Association's produced a briefing, because there's going to be a brief debate in the House of Commons on Monday on this question. And so the practical issues are to do with searching and testing and so on. What are clubs doing at the moment? What more do they think could be done? Are any changes in the law required? Although spiking is clearly already a criminal offence. And as I understand it, the 1861 Offences Against the Person Act. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that context, and also for the information that it's going to be discussed, debated in Parliament. That's really helpful. I'm now going to go to the students' unions, who have indicated that they'd like to raise a few issues and ask some questions. So the first speaker is Andrea Kerslake, who's the LUU Leeds University Union student representative. Please, can you put your hand up, Andrea?
Hi, has that worked? Can you hear me? Great. Thank you, Alison. Yes, I mean, the question really from us, which I think we got quite a few answers last night when we met some colleagues within West Yorkshire Police, which was really, really helpful. So what we were looking at is what actions the police are taking in terms of, and the clubs and venues, around actually making the premises a lot safer for students, and what happens once a report is actually made. So we've had some concerns from people who've made reports to say that when they have contacted venue staff or security or made a contact with the police, that they've not been taken seriously, that they've been told actually they're drunk or no, it can't have happened. So what we want to do is encourage a lot more people to come forward, but we need to build that confidence and that trust to make sure that they're going to get that support that they actually need. So the meeting with the police last night was great to hear what they were doing, and what I'd be really keen on in terms of the meeting tonight is in terms of what the venues around the city centre are going to be doing. Thank you.
Thank you. And before we bring in the some of the venues who have sent in some questions, I'm going to ask Sadaf from Huddersfield University Union to also come in. And Sadaf, I think you need to put your hand up. Yes, brilliant, you have.
Yeah, hi, thank you. So I just had 3 points to raise. So the student union here has a very good relationship with the police and Kirklees Council since everything that's been happening in the past 2 weeks since the boycott as well. They've decided to reintroduce Ask for Angela, and they've also worked very closely with us to make sure that our students are getting the correct help. But I still had some questions. So we just wanted to know what support and funding is available to help protect people on nights out, and will this be extended to smaller towns and cities across West Yorkshire? And so we've relaunched Ask for Angela, the council here has. I'm just wondering if this is something that will take place in other local towns and cities across West Yorkshire, as it is a national campaign, and I'm aware that many people are aware of it, but is this something that will be pushed through licensing now? And then the other one was that we have quite a few commuter students at our university who don't always tend to go on nights out in Huddersfield. So if we are sending out a message to our students, will this be followed the same across all venues within West Yorkshire? So the procedure is the same, the actions that are taken once something is reported, will it be the same across all towns and cities? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, really, really good points there, Sadaf. I see Councillor Al Garthwaite's got a hand up to speak. Al, would you like to ask a question?
Yes, thank you. Yes, just to say that Leeds is also running Ask for Angela, Leeds City Council, and last week there were over 480 premises signed up so far, mainly licensed premises in the city centre, and the official launch is on the 11th of November. So we're looking forward to that. And also to say that everyone's been talking about people. Now, my understanding is it's overwhelmingly women and young women who are actually being affected by spiking, and the victims of spiking. So just to make that point, I think that's quite important in looking at it. And I do know that some clubs have been searching the young men in particular than the men. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's just given me a bit of time to get some facts, and I'm really delighted to say that the Mayor's office has already applied to the Home Office for £5,000 for each of our districts to roll out the Ask for Angela scheme. We've got to wait to find out if we've got it, but the prescience of the Mayor and her office is amazing. So she's already applied for that money, and we will find out in the coming weeks if we've got it. And that's £5,000 for each area of West Yorkshire to roll out Ask for Angela. And as you've already heard, it's coming to Leeds, and I'm going to be at the launch next week. So that's amazing. Em, I think, have you got a public health message to bring at this point?
Yeah, and just to highlight the work that we're doing in the violence reduction unit around the nighttime economy. So we've had a group working on this for quite some time, and we've just relaunched. It's been soft launched since October, licensing Savvy. So that's across Bradford, Kirklees, Calderdale and Wakefield. That's got Ask for Angela as part of it. It's got some new information in there around spiking. The whole thing around El Savvy is about broadening the licensing asks of venues to look at health and safety, look at the safety of vulnerable people in the nighttime economy, as well as women and girls are bespoke in that as well. So that's been launched. It's free to the point of any venue taking up the accreditation for 300 venues. So if you need to know any more about that, you can ask myself and Chloe. The other thing we're just about to commission is bystander training for all door staff. And the bystander training hopefully will raise awareness around the vulnerabilities that women and girls face in the nighttime economy, as well as other marginalised population groups. And we've just about, I think on the 12th of November, we're launching Smart Tag, which is a forensic tag. And the whole aim of that is the initial conversation to make people aware that actually, if you're up to no good in the nighttime economy, it's going to be easier for us to find out who you are, what you've been doing, and take enforcement forward. So we're hoping it's going to be a preventative approach, but in the case where something does happen, we can use the forensic water and the door staff can mark somebody, and then it is easier for the police to follow up. So when it comes to being able to follow up situations, that should make that job a bit easier. And the final thing is that Chloe and I are just writing the nighttime economy strategy for West Yorkshire for what good looks like. We'd be really keen to involve venues in co-producing that strategy, and student unions and universities. We want to launch it probably after Christmas now, so there's some time to co-produce it. And we're working with Simon, who I've seen's on the call, and the team in Safer Leeds to put St John's Ambulance in the town centre for 8 weeks from is it the 12th of November, Chloe, up until the beginning of January. So that will be there to offer a safe space for people to go and talk, to have triage, and anything else that we can ask St John's Ambulance to provide. So there's lots going on from a violence reduction unit point of view. And then I'm going to be working with the LRF comms and our comms and police comms to look at a public health campaign that we can send out there about safety, not about individualising behaviour in the nighttime economy, about general safety, public health messages that can go out there so that we can all feel confident and safe when we're out and enjoying the nightlife that we have in West Yorkshire. So just to give you a heads up on that, that was all.
Yeah, thanks very much, Em. And just for people to know, LRF is the Local Resilience Forum, and that's all, the local authority, police, ambulance, fire, and other partners. And just so you know, also the Violence Reduction Unit is part of the Police and Crime team, and we are part of the Mayor's office. So everything that comes from the VRU is funded through the Mayor's office. So some brilliant initiatives going on there. And also, even though Em didn't expand too much, we are working with St John's Ambulance potentially to help us to hold some urine testing, so that if spiking with needles is happening, victims can go straight to that venue in Leeds City Centre and get the evidence so that the police can prosecute. Because I know that the drugs can leave the system within 3 hours, and that sometimes is a barrier to people coming forward. And if we can help you by getting that evidence, then hopefully that means that working with the bar staff and the venues, we can get the CCTV footage, and then we can find those perpetrators and put them where they need to be. I'm going to move us on. So, and just to answer Andrea Kerslake's question, I did have sight of these questions yesterday when I was in a meeting with the Chief Constable, and I put this directly to the Chief Constable that the police are not taking allegations from women and girls, from victims about spiking seriously. And he acknowledged that that is not 100% in place, and he apologised for that profusely, and said that he would now be going back to the training element of the West Yorkshire Police to make sure that's embedded in the training. They're going to be emailing all staff and making sure it's on the all staff bulletin so that people understand that this is actually a massive issue which is increasing, but also that the new element, this more dangerous element of spiking, means that there's much more seriousness than ever before needs to be given to this incredibly dangerous area. I'm now going to move to some more questions, and I'm really happy to welcome Charlie, who's from the Old Red Bus Station, which is a Leeds nightclub. Who knew that? So, Charlie, the floor is yours.
Charlie, can you put your hand up, please, because I can't see a Charlie in the chat.
Or anyone from the Leeds bus station, Old Red Bus Station, who wants to come in on Charlie's behalf, please put your hand up.
The Chris Anderson.
Yeah, that's fine.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm the security manager, so I haven't had sight of event manager. I haven't had sight of the question, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a really poor signal, Chris. We can't really hear you. Shall I read out the question because I have it in front of me? Yeah, I'm going to take that as a yes. So if we mute Chris again, that'd be great. Chris stroke Charlie's question is about financial provision for venues to use to implement any anti-spiking measures. Clearly, COVID has hit the nighttime economy really hard, and this venue, along with many others, I have to say, from the questions that we've received, are really anxious that the cost of prevention doesn't fall on venues. So I think that's the majority of the question, but Charlie also asks about the price of drinks covers and testing kits and where they would be met from. Clearly someone here who's desperate to be part of the solution, really supportive of the measures that we're hoping to take, but also really conscious of the impact that COVID has had on the nighttime economy and wants to make sure that that continues to survive and thrive here in West Yorkshire. So I don't know that we can answer that question yet, but let's take another question, and if anyone feels that they can answer that question, please do come back to us. I think that just to say that we are looking at, with the NHS, we are looking at questions of testing kits. I don't think we'll be giving venues testing kits. I don't think that's appropriate. I think there's got to be some proper intervention from somebody who's trained about use of the testing kits and then using the testing kits in order, because they're illegal, something legal. Em is an NHS person. She's going to tell me the facts. Yeah, we will definitely pick it up. Em, do you want to respond to that part?
Yeah, so I've spoken to colleagues in A&E, and they're certainly looking at protocols at the moment, and they are seeing an increased footfall in relation to spiking. They deal with the clinical emergency that's coming through the doors. So if there isn't a clinical reason to test somebody to do toxicology, they're not going to do it. And if they do it, it will be for clinical purposes, i.e. liver function, if somebody's had excess alcohol, etc. So if we want to, they're not adverse to doing urine testing and testing in the trust, but we'll need to go through the governance, put a protocol together, and we'll need to provide the kits because the NHS just don't have the funding to do that at the moment. But ideally, the demand on our A&E services at the moment is out of this world, and ideally we'd want to have something at the point in the city centre and keep people away from A&E, because especially with COVID and the figures and everything else at the moment, So if we can get something at the city centre, because if those tests are time sensitive as well, by the time people get to A&E, it's too late, and the toxicology reports are not picking up anything. So that's not going to help with forensics. So I think A&E is a possibility as a last case scenario, but I think we need to look at how do we do something in the city centre and have a safe place in each city centre where people can go to.
Yeah. So that's something for us to take away. I've just seen a message from Simon Hodgson about safe space venues. So there's some things for us to take away and think about. So thank you so much, Old Red Bus Station and Charlie and Chris for that. And things like drinks covers, maybe our office can put bids in for funding for these things. I mean, obviously, timing's not great because we need to do it now and bids take time. So offline, we'll go away and think about these things because obviously we only got these questions yesterday and today. So it's understanding what people need and want and what the scale of the problem is. So if I bring in now, Chris Anderson from Tres Hombres Limited.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, that's me again.
All right.
I'm security manager for Old Red and I run a security company.
All right.
I sent quite a few questions.
Yeah, so ask your most important two.
Funding. So all the stuff in regards to female safety spiking is great. But are we losing sight of the overall safety of the city centre? In Pub Watch, we are constantly asking for the street marshals and the street angels through CNI and Basel. These are a great resource. Funding is always an issue. We have working groups, we can best practice. While the politicians and you guys are here, let's talk funding. Where can we get funding for these critical services in the nighttime economy? ASAP.
So do you want to tell people who don't know what a Basil and what's the other one?
So the CNI Street Angels are volunteer volunteer students generally, people who are carrying a welfare service. So if someone's been just walking the streets, door staff spot them, we call the street angel. Someone's too drunk to go home, we can call the street angels to give them welfare, give them water, look after them.
I mean Rob Wilson and his gang.
Yes, yeah. And then
I know Rob. I've been out. I volunteered with Rob. Yeah.
The Basel Street Marshals are a roaming security service. They've got the SIA license. They're again, if a venue has only one or two door staff on, they're a useful resource to come and assist the venue. Again, they're very useful for welfare issues, helping people get in taxis, making sure they get to McDonald's, get something to eat, and it's not moving the door staff away from the venue or tying up door staff time and leaving the venue unattended. They're a great resource when we have them, but funding, yes, is always an issue. So while the politicians are here, let's talk funding.
Right, no, brilliant point. And I think what's going to come out of this conversation is some separate meetings looking at a citywide strategy across West Yorkshire and what we're going to be doing in the whole of West Yorkshire, addressing the points that you've so helpfully raised there. Thank you, Chris. So the next question is from Graham Higgins, who's from Beaverworks.
Hello, just unmuting myself there, I think. Am I unmuted yet? Am I unmuted now?
Yeah, you're unmuted.
Can anyone hear me?
We can hear you, yes.
Hello?
Hello, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Graham.
Okay.
We can hear you.
Basically, what I want to know, you can hear me, okay. What I wanted to know is when we're searching people, what should we be looking for? Because we've been hard searching people right from the start. We did on the very first Friday, we literally did more than you need to get on an aeroplane. But obviously we metal detected everybody. Metal detectors, probably not as good as you imagine, but they do obviously serve not only to find things, but also as a deterrent to anyone who might be thinking of it. So we metal detected everyone. We even looked in their socks, put everything in their bags in trays, etc., etc. I did a very thorough search. Since that first one, we've not searched as hard, but we've still searched everybody, including the girls, and emptied every bag. But of course, we don't know if there's a particular drug that anybody's using or if there's a particular, I mean, I'm imagining that needle spikings are probably not that prolific. But if there's a particular drug that people are using, if there's a culture that's going on, if there's something we can find, for example, we do occasionally take drugs off people. And if one of them is a drug that people are using, I'd like to know which one it is that's been identified in tests and stuff, so that if I get somebody and I find someone that's got that drug on it, instead of just looking at them as someone who might have had a small amount of drug to use themselves inside a nightclub, which, you know, anyone that's got a nightclub, that's not a particularly frightening thing. Whereas if they were going to use that to drop in somebody's drink, that's a completely different matter. And so if anyone's got any information on that, I'd really like to know what it is.
That's a really good point. Thank you so much, Graham. I know we've got the police here this evening, so would Jonathan, I can see you've got your hand up, and he's a police officer, so that's brilliant.
Just need to unmute yourself, Jonathan.
Yeah. Are we? Yes. Good evening, Deputy Mayor. It's Jazz Khan, Detective Superintendent at Leeds. We've met before as part of the senior leadership team. John is present to my right, and also Richard McNamara, DCI Safeguarding Governance. We have got some answers that I can go through.
Yes, please.
In terms of, yeah. So Graham, you talk about metal detectors and ketamine and other particular drugs. Obviously, we have a nighttime operation running through John McNiff and his staff. That's known as Operation Capital, and I would encourage, obviously, reporting and contacting the officers on the evening. We will always deal with those offences, and particularly spiking. You know, Deputy Mayor, you've talked about, others have talked about whether we take those reports seriously, but I can reassure you that we do have a strategic response to this. So the West Yorkshire response is Operation Genehaven, and then we've got a Leeds particular operation called Operation Drift Mill. So we do have, you know, when that call is initially made, officers will attend. I know you've said Chief is sending out some directives, but my understanding is officers will respond, it will be taken seriously, and in Leeds in particular, Leeds CID will deal with, and I've currently been dealing with, all spiking offences. So in the past couple of weeks, we have been working with partners, local authority and licensing, and yesterday we did meet the student union. Going back to some of the questions, we talked about, again, overall safety. I think, didn't get the name, but somebody from security spoke about overall safety. But again, Operation Capital does take place on those key nights. Looking at some of the other questions, I think, Deputy Mayor, you raised a question around urine testing. So I think I really need to give you some answers around forensic opportunities. So we have been liaising closely with our forensic managers and the labs. So yes, when you know, the victim attends hospital, that the hospital will do their blood checks and the urine samples are obtained, but the police are actually responsible for the urine testing. We have purchased roughly 300 kits recently from a different provider, forensic provider. So we are able to test the urine, and I would encourage people to come forward, report to door staff, police will attend. John's staff are obviously working on those key nights, and from the senior leadership team at Leeds, we're obviously aware of the increase in reporting, and we have got a good grip on actually recording everything. So I accept the figures are there. We talked about Ask for Angela, so I think somebody referred to that. That launch in Leeds is next week. And then just going back to Isabel, I think started off, you know, you spoke about the girls' night in and are the reports taken seriously, but I think having met yesterday with the Students' Union, you know, I've gone through our sort of like reaction to these reports, and I think MP, Mr. Ben, you talked about clubs and venues and searching. We have looked at the possibility of police drugs dogs. So a very quick win. If the partnership sign this off, we are able to actually have drug dogs deployed. So that's something we're looking at. We've met with Andrea yesterday and various student unions, including the university and Beckett University and the Arts College. We are meeting every fortnight with the student union, and the multi-agency meeting is every fortnight. I think Sada, she asked a question around, is there a force response? And the answer is yes. There is a force directive and everybody gets the equal service, even if it's Huddersfield. So we in Leeds are actually leading in terms of recording, and the daily report is shared with all our senior managers. I think that really, in terms of, I think there was a bit of around the urine and maybe the drugs are out of the system, but there are options for the police to take blood and stroke hair. So forensics remains in the hair much longer. So that's kind of like some of the questions. And in terms of the operational response, we've got a dedicated DI, inspector, sergeant, and detective constable dealing with these. These offences all reviewed regularly, and then we are looking at obviously high visibility patrols, which John's. I'll let John come in at that point around the Operation Capital.
Yeah, I'll just quickly touch, if I can, on the neighbourhood policing response. So I look after those officers that are based in the city centre. They work there exclusively. They know the venues and they know a lot of the people that come in and visit Leeds on a night time to make sure that anyone that comes into Leeds has a safe night out. So part of our visibility plan that we developed, both with local authority, with licensing, and with the venues themselves, is that visibility plan of uniformed officers going to venues, engaging with door staff, giving reassurance to people that are actually visiting the venues themselves as customers. It's a safe place to go. That yes, that when they do report crimes, if they do feel that they're being spat, that it's being taken seriously and it's not being dismissed as simple drunkenness or something of that nature, which unfortunately we do accept has happened before. So that's one of the key messages really to door staff. Clearly, searching of people where they may be bringing in needles or other devices to try and spike people, is something that we're reiterating with the door staff, and they're being really responsive to it for their part. I would have to sort of credit the door staff. They're really alive to it now. They're intervening. They're understanding and recognising where people don't maybe being led out, don't look comfortable, not with someone that they might expect them to be with, and intervening and making sure that police are aware and can attend quickly should it be required. So along with that, there's the evidential response, and that again is something that we're getting a lot of support from the door staff and the licensees as well, making sure that venues are being checked, that quiet areas are being checked to make sure that if anybody's feeling ill or is taken to one side, that they can see that and they can intervene again. Checking of floors and such to make sure that when there's anything being discarded in case there's any physical evidence of spiking. So all of this sort of visibility is built into our response, for the nighttime economy anyway. But clearly we've tried to enhance it as far as we possibly can to make sure that we're responding to those needs and those concerns that have been rightly raised over the last few weeks.
And just another point, Deputy Mayor, before I hand over to Richard McNamara, is I have also been liaising regionally and nationally, so we know there's some good practice in Devon and Cornwall, and as a result of that liaison, we were able to purchase these urine testing kits, which allow us to screen before it goes to full forensics. We're allowed to screen urine samples at the station, so we have invested in that. I know there's a lot of talk around funding, but West Yorkshire Police have bought those for the force. So I'm just going to hand over to Richard McNamara, who's got the force response, because I've got the Leeds response.
And before you do, Richard, there's been a couple of questions in the chat, so while Richard's speaking, can you have a little read through and then come back and answer those? Sure. Richard.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor and colleagues. Thank you for the opportunity of speaking. Basically, I just want to provide reassurance that we really have approached this with a focused, joined-up approach across West Yorkshire. We've got a dedicated plan in place for Leeds, and obviously there's a hell of a lot of work going on around that, but we're making sure that we maximise opportunities working with our key partners across the whole of the force, and really working out there to safeguard every single victim and maximise every single investigative opportunity to prosecute an offender. Quite rightly, we have got key lines of inquiry ongoing at this time, and it'd be inappropriate for me to speak about it, but we have to offer reassurance. Made a number of arrests so far, and prosecutions are ongoing in relation to these offences. I've obviously prepared that report for you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, that you've received in relation to the locations
and obviously the focus that we've got in terms of the incidents that's occurring. But I just wanted to give you that reassurance that we are joined up from Health, Safer Leeds and Kirklees and across West Yorkshire in relation to our response to this. And we'll be working with the VRU as well to maximise opportunities around creating safe spaces and safeguarding individuals out on the streets. Maximising forensic opportunities around the urine test kits to ensure that we can do that fast time analysis of samples so we can identify the drugs that are being used and most of all target the perpetrators behind this terrible crime.
Thank you. Have you managed to see the questions?
Yes, yes, Deputy Mayor. So the question around training of door staff, obviously, you know, we've talked about our strategic plan around working in partnership. So I feel that is something that we will probably take to the multi-agency meeting that we have. But certainly, you know, training of door staff, I mean, I haven't got the actual detail, but we can work on that. I agree there needs to be a bit more work probably around that. We'll work through licensing, both police licensing and local authority licensing, and John McNiff's team in the city centre. So not sure if there's any more questions.
No, thank you. Has anyone in the, yes, so we've got Graham Higgins Reeves again. Would you like to come back in? You've got to put your hand up, Graham. Graham, you've got to put your hand up virtually so we can find you.
It just needs to unmute.
Yeah.
Unmute.
Unmute, Graham, unmute.
I've got it. Okay, yeah, just throwing it back to the police there. First thing I'd say is if they've got some testing kits, if they've got, you know, anything like the cups, for example, that might be able to be used for it, if they could get spare ones of those and maybe leave it at the venues. You know, certainly a venue like ours, if I open for a, you know, a large student night, we'll get more than 2,000 people. Out of that, I'd be really surprised whether anyone's been spiked or not if I don't get at least 1 or 2 reports of potential spiking. And as such, it'd be great to be able to test the people, because obviously if someone thinks they've been spiked, they either go to accident emergency, where quite often they're delayed too long before they will actually get a drugs test done, or they'll just go home because of course they're distressed, they don't want to stay there sitting in our first aid room, etc., etc. And if we could actually get a test from them there and then as quickly as possible, we then have a chance to, you know, actually get some hard evidence on what's actually happening, what people are using, you know, what drugs they're using, how they're getting them in. And that's what we could really do with knowing that. That's what would help us the most.
All right, so thanks very much, Graham. So before I let the police come back in, I'm just going to bring in Miranda and and then I'm going to go back to the police.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi there, everyone. Hi. Yeah, I think all these ideas are absolutely fantastic, and there's so much that we can do at this stage that's going to support people to feel safer on nights out and make sure there are bigger consequences, of course, and enforce these ideas. But we really, really need to look at the actual root of the problem, which is that men are carrying out these attacks. And I really do feel like we need to maybe take things back to a deeper level of preventative measure, which would be about education around consent, and it would be about further exploration into mental health. We need to understand a lot better why people are doing these attacks in the first place. And in truth, I feel like the only way to do that is, you know, we have like suicide prevention hotlines and helplines. I work in mental health myself. You know, people can reach out if they're feeling like they might harm themselves. I feel like this might be a bit of a wacky idea on some levels, but I feel like we almost need a line or something where we can say, have you been thinking about spiking someone? There is a non-judgmental space where you will be heard and you can access mental health support, because the people carrying out these attacks are unwell. If we want to harm someone, we are unwell. Hurt people. We need to do something new, because things are getting worse, and we can be on the defense all we want, which we need to be, and I totally accept that we need to be, and it's marvelous all the things being put into place, but I feel like we really need to take things back to a deeper level now, which is going to be around stopping stopping people who are actually carrying out these assaults. You know, I was spiked less than 3 months ago, so I've become very passionate about this topic, and would really like to see something done around stopping people carrying this out rather than just being on the defense.
Yeah, and I think that everyone in the call would agree that prevention is better than cure. Tonight is about getting ideas around what we do to protect people now. Businesses are desperate to be supported with the right solutions, and women and girls are desperate to find out whether or not it's safe for them to go out. So I think having an immediate response is the right thing to do, and we do need to look wider. It's beyond policing. It's not just policing. It's a role for all of us to play. And just very quickly, the police have understood that there's a real massive education opportunity, not just around spiking, but around all forms of crime. And they've commissioned a PolEd course, which is completely free. It's from years 1 to 13 for all schools. They can have it all free in West Yorkshire. Any school that wants to have it can have it. And it's obviously, it matures depending on the age of the children, and it talks about all sorts of offending, grooming, consent, the whole gamut. And it's a really, really essential toolkit of wisdom for our young people. So I do urge schools, if you know any schools, or if anyone who works in a school is on the call today, to please have a look and see whether or not that's something that you could support in your school. I'm going to bring you in next.
Yeah, really to echo a lot of what Miranda said, and I put it in the chat. This is with, the long-term haul for this isn't within the gift of the police. It's the whole system. And I've met with DCI McNamara, and we are definitely looking at doing a combined approach through public health with the police to look at how we tackle this long term. There is some preventative work we can do with venues now, and we can support venues. We can support them through the LSAVI licensing. We can support them through the bystander training as well, and the trauma informed approach, because what we don't want to do is re-traumatize people that are out there as well, because that can be just as harmful as the spiking that's happening to them. So I think, yes, there's the long haul primary prevention stuff, but actually there's the stuff we can do now around prevention as well as the enforcement, because the enforcement, it's too late, the deed's been done.
I agree. And I think that we need to do all those things, and but it's really important for us to not forget that as people, we'd like to all stay safe all the time and not deal with the causes of crime, not deal with the consequences of crime. Sadaf?
Yeah, thank you. This was more a question for the police. So you mentioned that you've got urine testing kits that are going out. I just wanted to know how soon, because I know next Wednesday I'm going out with Chalk Kirklees, the police, and somebody from Kirklees that manages Ask for Angela. And we're getting a bus out in the town centre where students can go and receive medical care, and they're given refreshments, tea, coffee, somewhere to sit down, a bottle of water if needed. I don't know how soon you're thinking of getting these out, but it would be nice if by next week we could have some to have on the bus. Don't know, it was just worth asking.
Yeah, and I think the question was asked by Graham about whether or not people can actually have these. I don't think that's what the police are saying. Please do respond, because I think that there's a whole range of governance around these testing kits. I have to say 300 is not enough either. So we'll go back to the police to respond. Yes.
Back in, Deputy Mayor, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Yes, okay, yeah. So for what Graham has raised and Sadaf there, you're absolutely correct, Deputy Mayor. I would encourage any suspicion of spiking is reported to the police, and we will deal with the actual forensic side of things. Yes, there are urine testing kits available, but really, they're being purchased so that the police can actually screen those sort of like tests. There are also, from a company in Derby, I know that there are some drink testing kits. So rather than the urine, that there is a stage one. I am happy to share with licensing and the licensed premises details of that company. But as you're aware, funding is an issue for everyone. I've got to be honest with you, but I would not want the licensees or the licensed premises conducting the urine test. That is an issue for the police in terms of evidence, etc. And I would encourage medical intervention immediately and hospital, etc., etc. And then I think Miranda and Dem talked about the whole system approach, but we agree, the police on their own can't solve this, and it is a partnership, sort of like partnership way that we can actually solve this issue. And my final point is, yes, there has been quite a lot of increase in spiking, but spiking by injection has been quite low on the figures. Just to reassure yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. So just to put all this together, I don't see any more indications of questions. What I have got from the conversation today is that we need to have a whole nighttime economy approach to this. We need a strategy. Em and Chloe, please put your emails in the chat. So if anyone would like to be part of co-producing the nighttime economy strategy that she described, please do email Em or Chloe so that we can get your input on venues in particular and universities in particular. We would love to get your input into that work. What I've also gleaned from today is the need for us all to work in partnership across all our specialisms and our area of expertise. It can't just be down to the police. It has to be all of us working together. We really need to get a solution around the urine testing. It's great that the police have already moved on that. We do need to get more capacity than the 300, I think. And if we can get the hospitals on board, if we can get St John's on board, it's not guaranteed. We're having those conversations now, but the governance around the evidential test is the barrier, because if you get the testing equipment and then you don't follow it up with the proper forensic tests, it won't stand up in court. That's the problem. That's why the police are saying, please call them. But maybe St John's can do that. Maybe the hospitals can do that. So those conversations will continue outside of this meeting. I'll also go back to our office, the Mayor's office, to look at what areas of funding, once we've got our plan together, we could secure for things like support for venues. And I think the L-Savvy, the licensing savvy, the Ask for Angela are very easy, quick wins for licensed premises to enter, so that you can start to demonstrate to the public, and especially vulnerable women and girls, that you are serious about their safety and that you're doing all that you can. And I'm really pleased that so many licensed premises are here today. That absolutely says to me that you care about our safety, you care about the citizens who patronise your establishments, and it's very, very welcome that you have shown that interest here today. So we've got a bit of work to do back at the ranch, identifying what needs to be done, whether or not there's a financial cost to that, where we're going to get that money from. We need to get our nighttime economy strategy for the whole of West Yorkshire sorted, and we need to keep on talking. So what I think might be a great idea is for us to come back in another, say, 3 or 4 months, just to see whether or not the work that West Yorkshire Police have described, and I have to say it's brilliant work. I've been really pleased to hear that you've been on it, and not that you're doing the stuff that you're doing, which is great, but the speed in which you've implemented Operation, is it Jean? Yeah. The work that you're doing, it's the speed of it is just amazing. So I want to thank you for that. But there's more to do, and we need to also be supporting our venues and the people who use these licensed premises. So lots to do. Let's come back together. I'll get Alex's office to hopefully pull another meeting together in the new year, and then we can see if any of the things we put in place are working, what the situation looks like regarding spiking at that point, and what more needs to be done. Can I thank you all so much for coming? It's a brilliant first start of the conversation. It doesn't stop here, it starts here. We will meet again, and we will get a situation where spiking is a thing of the past, and women and girls are safe to walk the streets of West Yorkshire, but all citizens of West Yorkshire are equally safe. Thank you so much, everybody.